The world as we know it is shaped pretty much entirely by creation. Humanity's ability to create has proven time and time again to be both a blessing and a curse, as most people I know would not equate the development of, say, Hello Kitty to Oppenheimer's conception of the atomic bomb, despite both of these things arguably coming from the exact same human desire to create something. Creation is a good thing and a bad thing, but everything we know comes from the act of creation. And all of this buildup is just so I can say that I also love to create, and my particular poison right now is fan characters, so I have a lot to say. Let's start with what a fan character is. I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory, but I also don't know if I just think this because I've been exposed to the concept for a long time, so I'll just take care of the housekeeping anyway. A fan character is any original character created by a fan to fit into the universe of an existing series. There can be a laundry list of reasons why a fan of a series would want to create a fan character for it, which I will expand on later, but I think the biggest allure of making a fan character is that it can be kind of a fun mental exercise. Like, maybe you're really interested in developing your own original character, but you don't know exactly where to start with building the world they'll inhabit, or any of the parameters that world creates for the characters within it. The benefit of a fan character is that making one still enables you to create a character, but all of the world building and rules are already taken care of for you. Most of the heavy lifting has already been done for you, and now the only part you have to worry about is the fun part of figuring out how to fit a new character into the existing world. Or at least that's what I get my fun out of when I make a fan character. Everything about making a fan character comes from a place of creativity and at the very least some amount of love for the series you make one for. It's just a nice fun little hobby to have to pass the time, which is how most people view it. With the boom of the internet developing into more social of a network, little corners of the web became the home to people who like to make fan content and fan characters, starting in the 2000s on sites like DeviantArt and eventually Tumblr, and of course across many dedicated online fan forums created specifically for all kinds of different fandoms. Even if you've never made a fan character yourself, or you don't interact with artists much online, you've probably seen a meme or two about fan characters. One that I think is really funny is the Blood Edge the Griffin one. That is hilarious. The 2000s DeviantArt era of fan characters is pretty well defined by various shitty recolors like this of existing stock art of characters already in a certain series, with the more common ones being Sonic the Hedgehog in the 2000s and My Little Pony more so in the 2010s, mainly because the cast-wide similarities of these characters in the first place made any simple art of them very easily customizable from the get-go. Like, the characters in My Little Pony share the same rough base with stuff added onto them pertaining to that specific character's personality. The same sort of thing goes for Sonic characters, with their big hands and shoes being some defining traits that most, if not all, Sonic characters share. There were so many recolors of Sonic characters. You can type your name and the hedgehog into Google and probably find at least one fan recolor, if not a completely hand-drawn Sonic fan character under the name from years and years ago. And if you look up the phrase fan character or OCs for a specific series on Google and set the search to before 2018 or so, you can find all kinds of really cool, passionate creations, as well as a bunch of those DeviantArt posts I was talking about before, just sitting there like a time capsule. Very cool. But as you might notice while doing this, you'll find that there aren't only a myriad of lovingly made fan characters, but also probably a number of quote-unquote rule guides for making fan characters. This most famously impacts the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic fan space, with younger kids who just wanted to make a fun, pretty pony being bombarded by older fans about what they could and could not do with their pony character. Multiple guides exist for what a good OC looks like versus what a bad one would look like, most usually scolding flat, boring Mary Sue type characters with effortless beauty, extreme power when scaled against other characters, humble personalities, and the innate ability to get every character of the opposite gender to fall in love with them. Of course, nobody ever sets out for their OC to be poorly made unless they're purposefully taking the piss out of it, but these sorts of guides plagued popular fan spaces with the sole purpose of spreading well-meaning information to be helpful, maybe so to begin with, but then it turned into just a new way to bully other people for having boring, bad original characters by these arbitrary standards that fans made up on their own. Dialogue about what not to do with your fan characters became more widely circulated within fandoms than anything from anyone genuinely trying to help people with what to do ever did. Weirdly enough, the only instance I can think of for fan characters having a strict set of quote-unquote rules to adhere to are RWBY fan characters, and even then, it's less of a rule set enforced by any one particular person or group specifically to rein in boring OC slop, and more so a set of conventions within the universe that every already existing character follows too. I have my own set of RWBY fan characters, and I remember having a ton of fun making them solely because I had to think about these rules and work around them in the creation process. So in a way, that sort of structure, when it's not being presented in this "follow these exact instructions or you'll be bullied out of ever wanting to post again" way, can be part of the whole fun of making a fan character for a specific series in the first place. This sort of bullying over the creation of fan characters became more commonplace in the 2010s, and was made even more widespread in the 2020s as the post-pandemic internet became more hostile across the board.
Panic at the Disco, you are responsible for a guy lighting his penis on fire twice in Toronto.
We must have been terrible that night.
Mark's Pizzeria.
Did you know?
Today's video is sponsored by my Instagram page. I was initially trying to use TikTok more, but that app has ceased to be able to run on my phone correctly, so I'm gonna abandon ship. We're switching sides. Do you love any of these things on screen? I haven't decided which ones I'm showing. Do you want more insight into how my brain works? Well, please look no further than my Instagram account, which I will be using way more now because it actually will run for me on my phone. Here are some of my art pieces that are posted on there. If you want to see more stuff like this, please consider following me there. I do have commissions open at the time of recording this. Thank you to Nuki Roy Instagram page for sponsoring this segment, and now back to your regularly scheduled programming. I think directly because of all these events unfolding in the 2000s, actually because of the already present disdain for fan characters in board trolls online, people became more and more comfortable with trolling innocent people who made fan characters. They just started to believe that all people who made fan characters, especially people who had lower end or beginning artistic skills, and people who they perceived as noticeably neurodivergent, were nothing more than potential toys for them to mess around with rather than actual people behind the screen who just wanted to create something. Even if these bullies did harbor just enough empathy to maybe see other users as real people, it was only ever to see them as the worst type of person they could imagine to further justify their own mockery of that user. For example, negatively picturing a My Little Pony fan as a fat, middle-aged man behind the screen, so that mocking their pony sona didn't feel so mean, or maybe felt rational even, despite there being nothing immediately inherently wrong with being a fat, middle-aged man with a pony sona. I don't think it needs to be said, but I will say it here and I will say it again later. I am not saying any of this in defense of any users who genuinely do turn out to be weirdos and predators. There are whole other videos on the internet about specific weirdos in specific fandoms that paint a bigger, badder picture of a symptom in some things, so I don't feel the need to rehash any of that there. Okay, I feel like I'm making the fan character scene out to be a little too hostile, so for a small reprieve, let us talk about all of the lovely reasons and ways someone might create a fan character. I already covered this aspect, but I do see a lot of artists make fan characters just to try their hand at character design. Maybe they like a series a whole lot and just want to put a piece of themselves into it, or they're more of a writer and just want to explore that world with their own perspective. I think that's fantastic. I genuinely love seeing other people's fan characters. It's an addiction. More commonly though, and this is entirely of my own design, my algorithm knows what I like, I see a lot of fan characters made for the simultaneous purpose of pairing them together with an existing canon character in whatever series they're making their OC for. I am extremely guilty of this. Nearly every fan character I have was initially made for the purpose of pairing them up with a character I liked in whatever series I was making them for, or I eventually realized doing something between them and that character would be fun. This is nowadays referred to with the Japanese umbrella term of yumeshipping or dream shipping. I really think this one word is the only case of a Japanese term where people don't prefer it because of thing Japan, but more so because it really does mean its own unique thing. The word yumeshipping encompasses self-shipping and simple OC/X canon pairings, and everything in between. I also think the literal translation of dream shipping makes the act of engaging in it sound that much more like a laid-back hobby rather than something you take seriously, which is why I use the word, but this doesn't mean that some people don't take it seriously, which I will talk about. To give some personal anecdotes with my characters, I initially made my Ninjago OC completely for the fun of it, and later ended up wanting to pair him up with Kai. One of the OCs I draw the absolute most is a Honkai Star Rail fan character who I made solely to pair with Luca, and I most recently made another character for the sole purpose of pairing them with Mizuki from Overwatch. I don't have a job. I really don't have a job. I said a word in there that you don't know yet. Something that also exists, and I did briefly mention, is self-shipping, where someone will make a character for a series that is meant to be an interpretation of themselves, or a self-insert in something. Instead of creating a whole character from nothing, you give yourself a starting point to work off of by making yourself the character instead. Kinda like how most people, when given the option to create a character in a video game, or a similar opportunity like that, they'll make something that looks like themselves first, or even something they wish they could look like in real life. Important side note, self-insert has gained a colloquial use in the negative sense as a means for some people online, usually the less accepting types of people and especially gamers, to refer to characters not having their own merit, who are perceived as their creators' quote-unquote lazy self-insert. I see people bring up this argument most for when characters get new designs or alternate universe takes, where their race is changed from what it was for their original design. For example, one of the main reasons why people dog on the Velma series, which is an alternate take on the Scooby-Doo characters and universe, is due to the character Velma coming across, to some people, as the executive producer Mindy Kaling's self-insert. Self-insert in the negative sense has also been used pretty heavy-handedly in response to characters who get viewed as being boring. This is directed most notably toward Disney and Pixar's newer films, having a focus on specific social and personal issues among their characters, with people claiming that Turning Red's portrayal of the struggle of being a young girl, specifically a preteen Asian girl, depicted a story that was too specific to the director and not relatable enough to a wide audience, despite this not being true at all. People also perpetuated the claim that the redesign for April O'Neil in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem movie was a direct self-insert of one of the writers who worked on the movie, circulating this image as proof, when it was later discovered that the entire claim was fabricated, and this was simply a cosplayer unrelated to anyone who worked on the film. Someone likely made this story up as a means of painting self-inserts as a plague on writing that is the sole reason we don't get hot white characters on screen anymore, or whatever it is their little shrimp dicks have made them believe in their little shrimp minds. I obviously do not agree with what they think, and I just brought this up because it's more likely you've heard this term being used in this way rather than the way I use it in the video. Self-inserts are really fun and fascinating to me because you kind of get to choose how much of yourself you want to put into the character. Like, maybe you want a completely different appearance with the same personality, or maybe you want the same appearance and only a few defining pieces of your personality traits to keep things simple. It's literally entirely up to you, it's so fun. For example, I have one self-insert that I draw to look like myself but with slightly cooler hair. I made her specifically to represent myself, to ship myself with Welt from Honkai Star Rail. We are very happy together. As another different example, before this I did initially plan on making a self-insert to pair with Toma from Genshin Impact, but during the process of creating that character, I decided I didn't want her to represent myself directly anymore. I instead went with making her entirely her own person, and just giving her one or two personality traits that are similar to mine, just to keep her initial inspiration intact as a little Easter egg type situation. The level of customization is entirely up to what you want from your experience. You might even be familiar with probably the most well-known self-shipper who goes by basically Ed on these platforms, who appeared in Smiling Friends on the basis of her shipping herself with Alan the Red Thing. That is incredible. Just like this user's approach to self-shipping, I'm not ashamed of admitting any of these things or talking about my characters because I just view it as something I do entirely as a fun, creative outlet and not something I take with a bone-deep seriousness at all. And that being said, there are some people who do, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing on paper, but can lead to some problems for the individual and anyone surrounding them. I won't give any exact examples, I'm only talking about hypothetical issues that people could face, and I'm not here to belittle anyone for feeling these things, or bring up anyone for my viewers to go and harass, but self-shipping can become a slippery slope into some bad mental health practices that socially distance the individual from others. On the one hand, self-shipping can be used as an escape for people whose social lives aren't necessarily great, but can eventually lead to that person viewing their self-ship as an excuse to avoid, or even forego forming real relationships. There is also the potential to experience dips in mental health that are entirely avoidable, namely the sense of jealousy or distress if you see other users on the internet self-shipping with the same character as you. Not everyone approaches dealing with seeing these doubles, as they're called, with the same lens. Like, personally, I love seeing other people's art of their Yume ships with the characters I have pairings with, and I will actually actively go out of my way to find people who like the same canon characters I do, who like them enough to make their own dedicated characters to pair with them. It gives me a weird little sense of community or something, like a little book club type of thing. But a lot of other people would disagree with this perspective. Maybe they feel a little more particular about their character of choice and would rather not see other people's interpretations, or see the character they've paired themselves with being paired with some other person. And I do get this, I really do, because even just seeing certain characters I really love, unrelated to any shipping thing, get mischaracterized in a way that goes so against how they're usually depicted will piss me off to my core and will put me off of those characters for a while until I get over it. But the thing is that I make sure I take those steps to get over it eventually. Some people can't and will lash out at other people online or send themselves into a spiral, and this can be dangerous. The main takeaway here is that if you want to practice Yume shipping, please do so responsibly and take care of your mental health. If you like seeing other people's Yume ships that double with your own, great on you, and still great on you if you prefer not to. Though if you are in that latter half, take it from me, the block button can do wonders. Antagonistic and concerning people within the Yume shipping community have unfortunately become mascots for the whole picture of Yume shipping, with users who don't engage in that stuff viewing all Yume shippers as these crazy, possessive weirdos who treat their Yume ships like it's life or death and are completely detached from reality. The fact that there being a few bad apples within the community has given people outside of it sort of an excuse or a justification in their mind to be rude to people who just post about their Yume ships. After Smiling Friends directly referenced Basically Ed and her Yume ship, I did see a number of people trying to spark backlash over this, particularly seeing one tweet from her addressing people saying that the creators were feeding into her quote-unquote delusion. Her response puts it the best, that this kind of thing is predominantly viewed as something fun for people to do, and she was genuinely so nice about it despite the hate she got. I hope she and Alan are very happy together. I think there is also a layer of misogyny to it that plagues fan spaces in general, where if you make a female character for a series, you'll get more hate, especially from male fans of that series. And an alarming amount more hate if you pair that character with a popular male character in that series. Those posts about girls ruining certain anime by shipping the male characters together come to mind. There's also a very palpable racism in fan spaces, discouraging people of color from interacting with other fans and being treated differently, but this is also especially the case in the Yume shipping community. It's somewhat rare to see anyone Yume ship with a character who has darker skin, whether that's by design or through headcanons, and people who do have darker skin and engage in Yume shipping are often treated very heinously by bullies and even other Yume shippers online. Something widespread that I also regularly see, just because of the frequency that I interact with other Yume shippers with, is people trying to be funny in comment sections under those people's posts about their OCs. I've seen so many instances of people posting that who is he gif or picture or whatever it is under the posts of people just trying to have fun. Like, I do know some creators do think it's funny. If it were under my posts, I would probably find it funny too, but after a few times the joke stops being a silly little joke and something a bit more bothersome. It's not the biggest issue in the world, obviously, but just a testament to how careless and selfish some people on the internet have become comfortable acting. It's even more annoying that these people act like self-ships and OCX canon are these new things that nobody started doing until recently, when I guarantee you at least somebody out there has a grandparent who had a Star Trek self-insert to ship themselves with Captain Kirk. The term Mary Sue that I talked about earlier came from a fanfiction that set out to criticize similar self-inserty Star Trek fanfiction, because it did exist, and enough of it must have existed for this piece to be written, right? The first memory I have of creating a fan character, and I don't think I actually have the drawing anymore, thank God, was a fan character for Wreck-It Ralph to ship with the little pumpkin Sugar Rush character. I was 8 years old. The only websites I used at that age were Club Penguin and nickjr.com. There was no possible way that I knew yumeshipping was even a concept with a definition at that age. My own mother loved Skeletor from He-Man and would write self-insert fanfiction about the Lost Boys as a kid. Now it all makes sense why I am the way I am. I was born a Yume shipper. There is no basic etiquette anymore. Those people from the 2000s who made OC guides and headhunted people with boring OCs have been reborn as people posting the guy nobody invited under anything remotely resembling a fan character. At the end of the day, fan characters are just something I'm really passionate about, whether that be my own or other people's. I can't imagine living in a headspace where I would want to belittle someone for simply making a fan character, and I'm very glad I ended up how I have, because nothing is more personal to me than my love for creativity. I'll even make fan characters once just for the love of designing one and then never touch them again. That has happened so many times, more than I can keep track of. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. I don't think I covered absolutely everything. This video was kind of made to be a little more laid back and just a way for me to yammer about my personal thoughts. But I hope you enjoyed it regardless. Have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you around for the next video.